All right, here we are with percents and specifically with applications. They are all over in the world. So let's show a couple of examples on how they might be used. So the first one, let's look at an example of like basketball. Some guy makes 7 out of 11 shots, and the question is, what percentage is he shooting? So we write 7 out of 11. Notice out of becomes division, just like a quiz score, 7 out of 11, and we do the division. You may have a calculator or you may be restricted to this kind of a problem, so I'll do it quickly here. And when we get down to this point, we get it repeating. And if it repeats, it's going to be 0.6363. Now, when we change that to a percent, so we do the division, make it a decimal, move it 2 decimal places, and that turns it into a percent. So we've got this thing repeating, and so moving it 2 decimal places, we're now going to have 63.63%. Your teacher may expect that sort of precision, or you might be able to round it, like 63.6%, or even to the nearest percent. This guy shoots about 64%. Depending on the instructions your teacher has, you might do any of those answers. Let's look at another one of finding percents. This one would be like an increase or a decrease. So an increase or decrease where, let's say we start with 20 students and then it dropped down to 17 students, which means we dropped 3 out of the original 20. So again, 3 out of the original. So we write it like this, 3 out of 20, where the bottom one, make sure that always happens. This guy is always the original, not the 17, because we dropped 3 from the original 20. So now we can do this division just like we did before. And 20 goes into 3. Put a few decimals there, and we'll speed that process up for you. Looks like we end up with 0.15. Move it the 2 places to get it into a percent, and we get 15%. So this class, or whatever it was, decreased 15%. If it would have gone from 20 up to 23, it would have increased by 15%. Now, the second kind is when we are given percents, and they show up all over in the world. For example, something where it says, hey, this is now 30% off. It's a sale. Stock market crash. It went down 6%. And population growth. Oh my goodness, population's been growing in a certain city, and it increased by 15%. Something like that. Now, we should note that when we are given percents, they don't give us actual amounts. You need to know, and this is the most important part of percents, what they are percents of. For example, 30% of a $10 item and 30% of a $100 item are very different things. So this of is very important. And of means multiplication. It means to times things together. So in this case, if we have 30% off of something that is, say, $40, then this is how it works. You take 30% of $40, and what does that become? This, as a decimal, move it 2 places, is 0.3. Of means times 40. 0.3 times 40. So if we run that through, 0.3 times 40, and we get equals $12. This is how much off it is. 30% is $12 for this 40. If this were a different number, it'd be much bigger. But we now are going to take the $40, subtract the $12, and we end up with $28. So that's how much this sale would be. Let's try it with another one. Stock market crash. Let's say the stock market is up at, I don't know, 18,000 points. And it then decreases by 6%. And your first question should be 6%, 6% of what? That's not a number in and of itself. It's not an amount, it's a proportion. It's a portion of this. So we've got to do 6% of the 18,000. Which means we've got to take 18,000 times 6%. Move it 2 decimal places to get it back to the number we can work with, 0.06, and then go ahead and multiply them out. We got 0, 0, 0, 8, carry the 4, 6 times 1, there we go. And with 2 decimal places. So it's 1,080 is 6% of it. So we've got to take 18,000 And now we know how much it went down. It actually decreased by this 6%. That's what the 1080 is 6% of 18,000. So it now decreases down 1,080. So this now gets 16,020. There we go. It's now decreased down 6% to that. So let's do an increase one and see the exact same kind of pattern. So let's say a population starts out at 2,500 in a certain city and it increases 15%. Well, the immediate question is 15% of what? It's always got to be of something, and it's of the original of 2,500. So 15% of 2,500, that means we're going to times it. 2,500 times 15%, which is 0.15. Let's go ahead and do this by hand, but you might have a calculator. 0, 0, 5, carry the 2. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12. And then put a 0 there. Now we have 1 times 0, 1 times 0, 1 times 5, 1 times 2. No carrying. So we have 0, 0, 5, 7, 3. And how many decimal places? 2. So we'll notice that this 15% of 2,500 is 375. So this guy is the 15% increase. So it increased by 15%. We now know that 15% of this is 375. So what's the new one? You're going to add them now. 2,500 plus 375. And why are we plussing here and minusing here? Because this guy was a decrease and this guy is an increase. So the final on this one is 2875. And that's its final. Good.